Close your eyes for a moment. Now, try to imagine something impossible. Imagine yourself, without the sense of you. No voice in your head reading these words. No silent narrator interpreting what you see. No constant stream of thoughts commenting on your existence. Just sensation. Movement. Breath. A human body walking through tall grass. Hands reaching for fruit. Eyes tracking movement in the distance. But no one inside watching it happen. No inner witness saying, I am doing this. This is not imagination. This was real. There was a time, not in myth, but in history, when human beings moved through the world like water through a river. Flowing. Reacting. Surviving. But never watching themselves survive. They had hands that could grip. Eyes that could see danger. Brains that could learn, adapt, remember. But they did not have you. That strange, invisible passenger that lives behind your eyes. That voice that never stops talking. That feeling of being someone. They were human. But they were not conscious. Not the way you are. Not yet. And somewhere, between then and now, something changed. Something emerged that had never existed before in 4 billion years of life on Earth. Not sharper vision. Not stronger limbs. Not better memory. Something stranger. The ability to watch yourself think. To feel time passing. To ask, who am I? There was a time when humans lived without knowing they were living. And then they woke up. But when? Let's be clear about something from the start. Consciousness is not intelligence. It's not cleverness. It's not problem solving. It's not even awareness of the world. You can be brilliant and still not be conscious. Consider this. 2.5 million years ago, human ancestor picked up a stone and struck it against another stone at precisely the right angle, with exactly the right force, to create a sharp edge. This required planning, spatial reasoning, cause and effect. This required intelligence. But it did not require an inner voice saying, I am making a tool. I exist. I am the one doing this. The hands knew what to do. The mind coordinated the motion. But no self needed to watch. Fire. Humans controlled fire over 1 million years ago. They carried it, protected it, fed it, used it to transform their world. Fire requires incredible knowledge, timing, care. But you don't need to reflect on fire to use it. You don't need to ask, what does fire mean to me? You just use it. Now consider the animals around us today. Crows solve puzzles. Octopi escape from tanks. Dolphins recognize themselves in mirrors. They learn. They adapt. They communicate. But do they wonder? Does a crow, after solving a puzzle, sit in silence and think, I am a crow. I did that. What does it mean that I exist? Or does it simply move to the next moment? Intelligence is ancient. But consciousness, this consciousness, the kind you're experiencing right now, is something else entirely. Consciousness is not knowing what to do. It's knowing that you are the one doing it. It's the difference between seeing and seeing yourself see. And that difference is everything. Picture this. A human, perhaps 200,000 years ago. Anatomically modern. Same brain size as yours. Same potential. They wake as light touches the horizon. Hunger rises. They move toward water. They see a shadow, freeze, scan for danger. Nothing. They continue. Every moment, complete. No thoughts about yesterday's hunt. No worry about tomorrow's weather. No voice narrating, I should have taken the other path. Why do I always do this? Just this breath. This step. This sound. Life is a series of nows, unchained from each other. Memory? Yes. They remembered where the water was. Which plants were safe. Who could be trusted. But memory without story. Knowledge without identity. They didn't walk through life narrating themselves to themselves. They didn't lie awake replaying conversations. They didn't imagine a version of themselves 5 years in the future. Because there was no version. There was no continuous me stretching backward and forward through time like a thread. There was only present tense survival. And here's what's strange. This might have felt like freedom. No regret. No anticipation. No self-criticism. No voice saying, you're not enough. You'll never be enough. Just wind. Sunlight. Hunger. Satisfaction. An existence without the prison of narration. But also without meaning. Without the ability to ask why. They were alive. But they had not yet become someone who was alive. That transformation was still coming. Something happened. We don't know exactly when. We don't know exactly where. But at some point, language, which had existed outside the body, in grunts and gestures and shared sounds, turned inward. Imagine it. The first time a human heard their own thoughts, in words. Not as instinct. Not as image. But as voice. The same sounds they used to call to others across the savannah, now echoing inside the skull. Invisible. Private. Unstoppable. At first, maybe it was just labels. Danger. Food. Go. But then, something stranger. That tiny sound. One syllable. But it changed everything. Because to say, you must believe there is something separate from the world to name. You must carve out a space between the self and the scene. The moment you say, I am hungry, instead of just feeling hunger, you have created a witness. Someone watching the hunger. Someone having the experience instead of being it. And once that division occurs, you can never go back. Language didn't just describe the world. It created an inner one. A second world, made entirely of symbols and echoes and invisible conversations with yourself. You could now be in two places at once. Standing by the fire, but also narrating standing by the fire. Eating, but also watching yourself eat. The body remained in the present. But the mind, for the first time, could leave. It could go backward. Forward. Sideways into imagined futures that didn't exist yet. And in that departure, consciousness was born. Not as a flash. Not as a revelation. But as a slow, creeping awakening to the fact that you were not the world. You were something inside it. Separate. Alone. Aware. But how do we know? How do we find the ghost of an inner voice in bones and stones? We look for meaning. Because consciousness doesn't just think, it makes things matter. And around 100,000 years ago, something new appears in the archaeological record. Red ochre. A mineral. Iron-rich. Blood-colored. Ground into powder. Smeared on bodies. On tools. On cave walls. Why? It had no survival value. You can't eat it. It doesn't make sharper blades. But they used it anyway. Because it meant something. Red like blood, red like life, red like the sun. Symbolic thought. Then, the burials. Before this, the dead were left. Scavenged. Forgotten. But then, humans began to dig. They placed bodies in the earth with care. Curled like sleepers. And beside them, objects. Tools, shells, beads, ochre. Why? Because they imagined something beyond the visible. A journey the dead might take. A place they might go. An existence after this one. To bury someone with care is to believe in things that cannot be seen. It is to hold two worlds in your mind at once, the physical and the imagined. And that is consciousness. On cave walls, we see it again. Handprints in red and black. Animals painted in motion, bison, horses, lions. Not maps. Not instructions. Art. A human stood in the dark with a torch and said, without words, I was here. I saw this. I want you to see it too. They didn't just survive the world. They tried to capture it. To transform the fleeting into the permanent. To make the invisible, visible. This is not intelligence. This is meaning-making. And meaning-making only happens when there is a self asking, what does this mean to me? Consciousness appears when humans begin to imagine beyond the visible. When they stop living only in what is. And start creating what could be. But consciousness is not just about the invisible. It's about the impossible. The past doesn't exist. Not physically. The future hasn't happened. Yet you live in both. Right now, as you hear these words, part of your mind is somewhere else. Replaying a conversation from yesterday. Anticipating a meeting tomorrow. Wondering what you'll say. What you should have said. You are time traveling without moving. And this ability to leave the present is the signature of consciousness. Early humans began to feel regret. Not just pain. Not just fear. But the haunting sense that a past version of themselves made a choice, and now they must live with it. I should have run. I should have stayed. This is not animal learning. This is a self looking backward at another version of itself and judging it. They began to anticipate. Not just react to hunger, but imagine hunger coming. To see a future self suffering, and act now to prevent it. To plan not for tonight, but for next winter. To store. To prepare. To sacrifice present comfort for future survival. This requires holding two selves in mind at once. The you of now, and the you of later. And that gap, between now and later, is where consciousness lives. Animals exist in time. But conscious beings know they exist in time. They feel it passing. They grieve what's gone. They fear what's coming. Time is no longer just a river. It's a weight. And once you feel that weight, you cannot unlive it. Consciousness is the awareness of time. And time is the awareness of ending. So when did it happen? When did the light turn on? The answer is, it didn't. There was no switch. No single sunrise when a human woke up and said, I am conscious now. Consciousness emerged the way a photograph develops in liquid. Slowly. In layers. First, a flicker. Then a glow. Then a steady flame. Some humans may have felt it earlier than others. Some cultures may have deepened it faster. Language evolved differently in different places. Ritual practices appeared at different times. Art bloomed in some regions and stayed silent in others. Consciousness wasn't a species-wide revelation. It was a gradient. A slow thickening of the inner world. Even within a single person, consciousness might have flickered. Moments of clarity followed by long stretches of flow. You've felt this. Hours pass while you work, and you barely notice. Then suddenly, snap, you're back. Aware. Narrating again. Consciousness is not binary. It's not on or off. It's depth. And 40,000 years ago, that depth was still shallow. Today, it runs deeper. Tomorrow? Deeper still. Because this is not finished. Here's the secret they don't tell you. Consciousness is not something that happened. It's something that's happening. Right now. In you. You are not the endpoint of awareness. You are a stage. A layer. A depth that future minds will look back on the way we look back on those early humans burying their dead with ochre and shells. They'll wonder. How did they live with so little awareness? Because even now, even with all your thoughts, your self-reflection, your endless inner narration, you are still mostly unconscious. Most of your decisions are made before you're aware of them. Most of your emotions arrive without explanation. Most of your life is autopilot. You think you're awake. But you're only beginning to wake up. Meditation practices. Psychedelics. Neuroscience. Philosophy. All of them are tools for deepening the thing that started 100,000 years ago. All of them are ways of turning the light inward and seeing more. Because consciousness is not a gift we received. It's a direction we're moving. And the question is not, when did it start? The question is, how far can it go? Somewhere in the deep past, a human stood in the dark and painted their hand on a cave wall. And in that moment, they said, I am here. Today, you sit in the light of a screen and ask, who am I? Tomorrow, someone will ask a question you cannot even imagine yet. Because consciousness may not be something we gained. It may be something still forming. Still unfolding. Still reaching toward a version of awareness we haven't yet become. The story didn't end. It's still being written. And you are the pen.